With recent studio shutdowns, changing priorities, and a subpar showcase, the question is, what is going on with PlayStation? Namaskar friends, welcome to Illegal Desi. Let's check it out. If you like the video, then do leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps out the channel more than you know. Your feedback is also welcome down in the comments below. After PlayStation's recent showcase, people are absolutely outraged, and to be honest, they have every right to be. It took nearly 2 years of silence to PlayStation to come out with a showcase that gets absolutely slammed on the internet, with people immediately coming out and calling it terrible, including the most hardcore fans. PlayStation has had all the momentum going into this generation, with PS4 selling over 100 million, nearly twice as of Xbox, and releasing PlayStation 5 with Demon's Souls remake and Spider-Man Miles Morales. It even managed to snatch 2 games from the Xbox-acquired ZeniMax Bethesda, Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo as timed exclusives. Its last showcase was back in 2021, though not mind-blowing, still revealed amazing games such as God of War Ragnarok, Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine. Since then, Sony has been busy making small acquisitions of multiple studios and committing to releasing 10 games-as-a-service games, but it has been insanely quiet on everything else. Many speculated that Sony is not revealing its cards because of its attempt to block Xbox's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. However, it has still been making small acquisitions since then. Haven Studios, Firewalk, and Firesprite Studios were all revealed to have been acquired by Sony. Sony came out of the cages this year swinging, posting its highest selling figures for PlayStation 5 and amazing figures for PSVR 2 as compared to PSVR 1. With God of War Ragnarok releasing last year, Sony was out of first-party games for this year with the exception of Spider-Man 2, and heavily relied on Square Enix to carry them with Forspoken that failed so miserably it shut down the studio, and Final Fantasy XVI that is due to release in a month. But the last few weeks, Xbox wasn't the only one having bad news. A cancelled project and a shutdown studio and a subpar showcase means we need to talk about PlayStation. I won't lie that PlayStation has had multiple issues of its own for so many years, but till now it has been overshadowed by amazing content that Sony has put out year after year. However, this year Sony has found itself in a situation where it does not have the luxury of content overshadowing all the issues that Sony has. PlayStation has been known to be ruthless and dominant and would try everything in their capacity to crush the competition. Their aggressiveness would have nearly ran Microsoft out of competition, but ever since Xbox has started flexing its cash to buy first Bethesda and then Activision Blizzard, it appears Sony has spent more time focusing on Xbox than looking internally. We've had Jim Ryan, the head of PlayStation, flying out to nearly all key regulators that were to decide on Xbox's acquisition. There are also speculation that a gamers lawsuit to block this acquisition in the US, being run by a law firm, is also funded by Sony because there were some sensitive material present in there that related to Sony, and no way those gamers would have had any chance to present that if someone from the company was not involved. One of the reasons could be that Sony has had an exclusivity agreement, which means PlayStation will always receive additional content over other platforms for Call of Duty. With Xbox taking it over and promising to every single regulator that it would ensure content parity, meaning the same version of the game on all platforms, but additionally day one on Xbox Game Pass, you can see why Sony is being the way it is. This is a long-standing issue with Sony. PlayStation refuses to allow cross-platform with other devices unless they are paid some form of fee for allowing it. Microsoft, Nintendo, and PC all have cross-play integrated, and you can easily play any game with your friends if you're on one of those devices. But PlayStation sits in its own bubble, and if you don't want to fork out the money that makes cross-play impossible, this in turn will force consumers to decide whether they want to stay in the PlayStation bubble or go outside with PC, Xbox, or Nintendo. Now, this is not much of a complaint, but if you look at all the first-party games Sony has released in the past few years, they have mostly been narrative-driven, third-person action-adventure games, like The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, Demon's Souls, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Returnal, Horizon Forbidden West, God of War, with the exception of Gran Turismo 7. They heavily, and I mean heavily, rely on Activision Blizzard with Call of Duty to fill its FPS shooter void, which they themselves created after they pretty much closed development for Killzone, Resistance, and SOCOM back in the PS3 and early PS4 era. Apart from this, there has not been a single first-party FPS shooter or a big-named RPG released by Sony, which is why many have dubbed and joked about it on the internet, calling it the PlayStation exclusive template. Part of this might also be responsible for them shutting down Pixel Opus, an amazing studio that created Concrete Genie, which is again an amazing and diverse game, and also closing down the project with Deviation Games that was made up of ex-COD developers. Many say that since Sony had found its winning formula of game development, it wants to stick to it, and that it takes meta scores very seriously, which was cited as one of the reasons for there being no Days Gone 2. On the other hand, Xbox has had the opportunity to have a diverse first-party catalog consisting of shooters both first and third person, live service games, casual racing, pro racing, platformers, Metroidvania, RPGs, real-time strategy, sandbox, and even letting passion projects like Pentiment come to life. To be fair, all companies do it. But what Sony did sometime back was absolutely terrible. When Horizon Forbidden West launched, they wanted to charge $4,000 for the PS4 version and $5,000 for the PS5 with an extra cost for digital upgrade. People showed outrage and they clarified over the blog that they will allow free upgrades, but what they didn't do was change the price for the PS5 version. So if you bought the PS5 version of the game unknowingly, you would still be paying 5,000 rupees even though a cheaper and better version was available. Neither did they do anything to address that particular issue. Fast forward to this year, they released a DLC for the game that is PS5 only, and you cannot buy or play it on PS4. It seems that Sony's dominant market position has made it way too comfortable that they have this feeling that no matter what they serve, the players will readily accept it. Sony basically disabled cross-generation features for all first-party games. This was true for many games. The Last of Us Part 1 being a remake, but then you had Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, Death Stranding's Director Cut, and even Spider-Man. And there are already reports that Sony is remaking Horizon Zero Dawn again, which is not only useless because that runs amazingly on the PS5 as it is, but a greedy move on their part. Again, Xbox runs circles around PlayStation on that by simply launching Smart Delivery, which basically will allow you to play the best version of the game on your device. I'm pretty sure that if it wasn't for Xbox's backwards compatibility program being a hit, Sony would not have allowed a single PS4 game to run on the PlayStation 5. To be honest, I don't know what they can do, because even now Sony is selling a ton of PlayStations. Further, its support is in the home base of Japan, which means it will also get a steady supply of third-party games which will be exclusive by default. But one thing that I do want to look at is its future. Sony is committing 60% of its resources to live service games, which is massive if you compare to 2019. The concern is that might alienate the core fan base who enjoys games like Uncharted, God of War over a multiplayer experience. It is also true that multiplayer games have not worked for Sony well even in the past. Lawbreakers, Destruction All-Stars, and more recently Babylon's Fall are proof of that. Just today itself, it was revealed that there are layoffs in the Naughty Dog multiplayer project. And like I mentioned earlier, the Deviation Games multiplayer project was also cancelled. I would say, as a consumer, to demand accountability from Sony to communicate more openly, to lay out their plans, so consumers do not show the disappointment the way they did after waiting nearly 600 days for a showcase. Sony is the market leader, but it needs to understand that it won't stay that way if it continues the path the way it is going. Jim Ryan currently feels that they have had an amazing showcase, but fans definitely think otherwise. Many market leaders have come and gone in the console market space. Atari and Sega are prime examples of that. Even Nintendo, that saw success with Wii, and then it saw its worst period with the Wii U before rising back up again with the Switch. Clearly, Microsoft is out here to compete even though they currently don't look the part. And sooner or later, Sony will have to get off its comfy chair and show the face of a great company that put out amazing games like it did back in the PlayStation 2 era. Because in the words of Satya Nadella, if this is about competition, then let us have competition. Anyways guys, that's gonna do it for the video, and I will see you in the next one.